A new limited 5-star character brings a lot of excitement. New movesets, new abilities, and new playstyles are always something to look forward to. This is only sweetened by the fact that he's completely free. However, if something's free, there's always a catch. And the fact of the matter is that while Xiangli might be free to claim and put on your roster, his ascending, leveling, and gearing won't be. And he needs some very specific gear to get the most out of his performance. Xiangli Yao is an Electro Resonance Liberation damage focused main DPS that offers a playstyle very similar to Calcharo, with far more flexibility and built-in abilities that streamline his delivery of damage. If you've had the chance to play his trial in the 1.2 story quest, you'll likely have experienced this smoothness firsthand. And wow, it's like night and day between him and Calculator. However, after taking the time to look through his array of abilities and bonuses across his skill tree, there are some complications when it comes to his synergy with Echo Sonata sets, Echo substats, and Echo skills themselves. While Xiangli might have resolved the issue with Kumquat's clunky playstyle, there are other problems that he shares with this silver-haired fox. Today we'll be discussing why this is the case, breaking down Xiangli's synergy, or well, lack of synergy with his potential gear, where his gearing could get extremely difficult, and where he'll be running into issues in combat, regardless of how smooth his baseline kit functions. As always, if you're enjoying this content, please hit that like and subscribe button. Xiangli's playstyle heavily revolves around constant casts of his resonance skill to deliver massive amounts of damage. He focuses around filling up his forte circuit with actions like basic attacks and regular resonance skill casts on field to unleash empowered resonance skills once that circuit is filled. He gains a unique forte circuit upon casting his resonance liberation, changing his 1 stack into 5, with an extremely powerful resonance skill available once he hits this cap. He also gains an entirely new moveset across his baseline resonance skill and his basic attack chain. All of these enhanced resonance skills deal liberation damage. At a baseline, what this means is that Xiangli Yao is going to be casting a lot of resonance skills. He has an incredibly short 5-second cooldown on his baseline one and gains an upgraded version with a similarly short cooldown during his liberation. This synergizes very well with his first inherent skill that grants stacking electro damage with each cast, and seems to work well with Sonata sets like Void Thunder, which boost electro damage that increases upon casting a skill. At first, Void Thunder looks like the go-to set for Xiangli. There really isn't any other option for a main DPS besides their attribute damage set or lingering tunes, and the attribute damage sets win out pretty much every single time. However, that's mainly if you can stack up their bonuses to full. Void Thunder is a unique Sonata set compared to others because it has 2 activation conditions, with one involving casting a resonance skill, while the other comes from using a heavy attack. These bonuses have separate durations and only 1 stack each. What this means is that you have to use both a resonance skill and a heavy attack to gain the full bonuses of the Sonata set. When comparing this to sets that simply activate on an intro skill, it's a bit more tedious. The problem with Xiangli is that, well, he loses the ability to use heavy attacks during his resonance liberation. They're all completely replaced with his unique basic attack chain that grants him those forte circuit stacks. To gain the full value of Void Thunder with Xiangli, you'll have to use a heavy attack at some point before casting his Resonance Liberation. This means that if you're using a sub-DPS like Yinlin to buff Xiangli's damage with her outro skill, you'll be eating into a fair amount of her 14-second uptime to activate your set bonuses. That's not the best. On the other hand, you could simply use this heavy attack before Yinlin's outro skill by quick swapping between the two. But the stack on Void Thunder only lasts 15 seconds, which means that its duration will likely run out during Yinlin's outro skill. After Xiangli is released, there will likely be some fantastic optimal rotations created to maximize the uptime of his buffs. But this is a tricky hoop to jump through to get the most out of the character. Some might find it easier to just use lingering tunes instead, even if it's a slight DPS loss. There's also another complication when it comes to Xiangli's rotations, and that's his echo skill. It's no lie at all to say that the Thundering Mephis is one of the worst echo skills in the game, with its ludicrous cast time, extreme exposure to attacks, and disappointing damage. If you thought Void Thunder was hard to activate, the buffs from this echo skill are far more difficult to work with. It's also no lie to say that it's one of the best buffs that Xiangli can have, with its boost to Electro and Resonance Liberation damage, which fits fantastically into his profile. Unfortunately, it's highly likely that players will be using the Tempest Mephis instead because of its dramatically decreased cast time and far more efficient swap canceling. However, Xiangli will only benefit from the electro damage boost on this echo skill and not at all from its boost to heavy attack. An unfortunate lack of synergy, but there's not really any other options. These echo skills have to find their way into a rotation to get the most out of a character's damage, and when combined with the issues on Void Thunder, this makes Xiangli's setups potentially one of the most complicated in the game, which is ironic considering the character he's replacing. However, the complication doesn't end here. Xiangli might be one of the hardest characters to gear in the game. When comparing stat bonuses across the skill trees of the limited 5 stars, Xiangli stands out, primarily because of the fact that he has no critical rate bonuses at all, only critical damage. Every other limited 5 star has critical rate. His 5-star weapon, Verity's Handle, is also on the lower end of critical rate when compared to weapons like Stringmaster, in exchange for that higher base attack. The next best option, the Battle Pass Gauntlet, has even lower critical rate. What this means is that Xiangli, if you pair him with a critical damage 4-cost Echo, like you typically do with crit rate weapons, will be needing a crit rate roll on virtually every single piece for him to work well. And that could definitely be a struggle. Combine that with the fact that he wants energy regeneration as well for consistent uptime on his liberation, and it could be extremely difficult to optimize his substats. On the bright side, this also means Xiangli could have some of the highest critical damage in the game, but it will be an effort to balance that with his crit rate. People say there's no such thing as a free lunch for a reason. Xiangli Yao will undeniably be a great asset for players' accounts, but getting the most out of him could be a bit more complicated than people think. But it isn't impossible. When he's free, you can't complain too much about the hoops you might have to jump through to get him working. As always, if you enjoyed this content, please hit that like and subscribe button. Peace out.